Hello, my name is Jared Keyte, assistant football coach, safeties and special teams coordinator at the University of Maine. I just want to start by thanking Coach Bandstra for having me on this platform. And really had an opportunity these past couple of days to go through and watch some videos and some presentations on some high caliber coaches, and some picking up on some great techniques and, just learning. And, especially during 2020, during this time, the quality of learning on this platform is serviceable for all levels, really. And I just want to thank Coach again for having me. Seen a bunch of coaches that I've played with or for, guys that I have a lot of respect for speaking on here, and I'm just happy to be part of it. So thank you. So again, my name is Jared Keyte. I'm the special teams coordinator and safeties coach at the University of Maine. My info is there at the top left, and I provided a little bit of a background of myself. Just kind of go through that very quickly. I'm a Utica College graduate, Fear the Moose. In 2012, recruited by Coach Fagiano, played quarterback for Coach Fitzpatrick, who's now the head coach at Cortland. And following my graduation there, I became an assistant, kind of helping Coach Fitz with the quarterbacks. And that's really where the bulk of knowledge started for me. Coach Fitz, a great offensive mind, and really taking that and applying it to the defensive backs, specifically safeties, and a lot of the things I coach just from an offensive perspective. Following there, I went to Springfield College, coached with Coach DeLong. I was a GA for 2 years for him under Coach Hollick in the defense, working specifically with the corners and then the outside linebackers. And again, what an excellent opportunity to be around a bunch of great coaches and a fantastic tree. Being there and having that opportunity moving forward has granted me a lot of different opportunities to learn and meet new coaches within that tree. So very grateful for that. Then moving on to Rutgers after that with Coach Rossi under Coach Flood as the head coach and working specifically with Coach Frazier and the linebackers. And following there, the next year I then went and was hired by Coach Harasimiak at the University of Maine, who is now with Coach Rossi at Minnesota. And now University of Maine under the head coach of Nick Charlton. And really, I just run through that because I think it's important for me to acknowledge a lot of the names and coaches that I've mentioned, because I didn't come up with a lot of these schemes, verbiage, techniques, different ways of teaching without, having met or being under the wing of a lot of these coaches. So I thought it was important for me to at least mention them, citing my source, essentially. So today we're going to talk specifically press quarters and more drill oriented. The drills that we run in press quarters. We'll talk certainly some scheme a little bit, so there's a level of understanding on how we run it and why we're running the drills and what we're looking for. But we are a mainly press quarters team. We do run a bunch of coverages out of it. And why we run press quarters. Well, first, and you'll talk to a bunch of defensive coaches, and you're always trying to find that extra hat. And press quarters are certainly get that with the two safeties. You always gain one, and that's no different than cover three and a lot of these different coverages adding the hat, but that's certainly the case press quarters. From a defensive back standpoint, for me personally, these next two are why we really run press quarters. And it goes back to the free access on the outside. We don't play any off coverage. Everything we do is from press. So our corners are going to be right up in your face. We don't want to give the quarterback any easy reads or throws, and our shell should look the same every time. So being a quarterback or a former quarterback, one of the things I'm constantly harping on with our guys is keeping the shell the same, right? Making that look the same for everything that we run. So at the snap of the ball, the quarterback has to have a post-snap read. And we're taking that free access, that pre-snap read away. You can check off. And one of the things I learned from Coach Fitz, playing quarterback back in the day, the first thing in the book was, do you have free access? Do you have that access into the boundary? Where is the roll? And against Maine, you can check the free access off on the perimeter because we're going to press and we're going to take that route away. The next piece is matching routes. So our quarters isn't a soft zone. It essentially turns into an off man. So you're going to see our safeties, they're at 10 yards off of a detached two, and they're essentially playing an off corner at 10 yards. That's difficult to do, but what that does is it forces the quarterback to throw into tight windows down the field. So we're aggressively matching routes all over the field and running with them, constantly man turning. Moreover, obviously it's balanced and sound. So whether it's a split coverage, full field coverage. Cover 4 is balance and sound, meaning that you're obviously going to have the support. You're going to be balanced on both sides, but the techniques essentially in quarters are the same on both sides, whether you're a boundary safety or a strong safety, or you are a weak linebacker or a strong linebacker. Now, you might be playing one technique more than the other. For example, the boundary safety might be seeing a 3-by-1 formation away from him much more than the field safety, but both safeties will know the technique by the end of the teaching. And then obviously we can be multiple out of that. So in my mind as a quarterback, anytime you have those 2 pressed corners and a 2-high shell, you could be getting cover 2, you can get a roll, you can get a pressure. So you can be multiple out of that look. Not that you can't out of all these other looks, but again, we're constantly trying to look the same in our shell. Moving over to the DB world of it, physical needs at DB, I just wanted to talk about this because these are going to be major points moving through the drills. Obviously, these are things that you're looking for in recruiting, so when we go to camps, when we're watching film, these are things, obviously, the intangibles that we're looking for. But more importantly, these are things, once we get our guys, we're coaching through the drills. So moving forward, I mean, you can't have 4 of these and not one and play DB at the University of Maine or really anywhere. So we're talking eyes, body, feet, hands, and hips. And we'll talk a little bit about each one of those specifically. First, with our feet, constantly trying to tell our guys to play with a base. All that means is playing with our feet underneath ourselves. When we talk about a base, a good football position, we're talking about playing with a good bend at the ankles, knees, and hips, a good back arch, and a power position ready to create contact or take on contact. And the DB world, it's the exact same thing in terms of playing with a base. We constantly talk about our hip circle. Our hip circle being this imaginary halo around our hips and trying to keep our feet constantly within our hip circle in any movement that we do. Okay, so pre-snap, obviously we talk about our feet, we talk about our stances. I'll talk more into that later. But post-snap, we're always talking about day one, at least having 1 foot in the ground at all times. There are cases of hoppers, guys jumping. We always want to have at least 1 foot in the ground ready to break at all times in transition. And of course, in the DB world is the back pedal. All right, so in our feet, we're constantly harping on the smooth pedal and fast feet. That'll be on our next slide. The transition of the break, we'll have that moving forward. And obviously, we talked about the football position, preparing for either block destruction or tackling. So our back pedal. And I know this is very wordy here. And, for coaching, myself and Coach Garrett, who's important to mention because he's our corners coach, came to us from Temple. Very, very good technically. Brought a lot of great ideas in terms of technique, drills. It's just really been a great addition for us in the back end, and myself being the first year safeties at the University of Maine, and just a great person to have in the room with me. And we're constantly talking about the back pedal and trying to clean it up. And I think it's important to coach each person specifically, each player specifically. So when we're looking, for purpose in the back pedal, the first thing we're looking for is you got to be comfortable and clean. And now it kind of goes back to overall philosophy of coaching where every player is going to be a little different, specifically in the back pedal, but in different techniques. Some guys are going to be willing more physical. Some guys are going to try to get in your pocket and run. So you kind of want to tailor it to what they do best. And we'll talk more about that when we see film, but comfortable and clean. If they're comfortable with having their hands in front, let them be in front. If they're runners, let them be runners in their pedal. But they certainly have to be comfortable and clean in their back pedal. They want to stay square. So constantly giving them a target and staying square to that target. By square, I mean their shoulders, their hips, and their profile. And then always having a key. Keying the midsection, having a purpose for each drill. So every time we run a drill, and we'll talk about the major points when we go through, we talk about major points with our guys and what we're looking for. And we're constantly giving them keys because eyes, to me, are the most important piece of playing DB. If you don't have good eyes, you can't play. So we're constantly trying to give them a key to react off of and keep the leverage with that. And then talking about the cushion, which is the overall purpose to keep that cushion on any vertical route in my back pedal. And once that breaks, now we've got to get out. Now, the overall fundamentals of the back pedal, obviously even weight distribution, but we want them on the inside portions of our feet, the balls of our feet. So honestly, day one, we're Division I FCS playing the CAA. We talk about where the balls of our feet are on our guys. in our meetings, we'll talk about that, and staying off of 7 cleats in the ground. So you see the parentheses there, no heels. We constantly talk about 7 cleats. We should never have 7 cleats in the ground. The balls of our feet should keep our heels off the ground in our pedal and really in any of our movements. Okay, we're going to push off that front foot for 8 to 12 inches, and that's very, very vague. And 8 to 12 is just a number, really, and it's going to differentiate between longer guys, shorter guys, quicker guys, or guys who are taking bigger steps to gain ground. But what we're looking for is low and tight and graze the grass. We shouldn't be picking up our feet and bouncing them off the ground. We shouldn't be reaching back out of our body in our hip circle. Just smooth pedal, slightly grazing the grass on the way back. And we talked about the hands being active, all right? And I don't care about your hands and the movement that you have, but I want them moving, whether it be a bob or a run, and I want that elbows to the rib cage. If they're too far back, my hands become inactive, and if they're too far forward, I don't have a clean back pedal, all right? And ultimately, the biggest coaching point, and that's why I have it below the heading at the top there, is shoulders over knees, knees over toes, and that's going to get create that football position, that bend for a clean back pedal, and then the rest is all coaching, essentially, in terms of the feet. And then we go to 4 phases with our pedal, and all of this is used in our quarters. Our start, which is really our read steps. So for our safeties, we call it preach. I'll talk about that a little later. Our pedal, once they break our first phase, we'll start into our speed pedal. If they create a weave, meaning they're creating lateral movement on their route, I now have to weave to gain ground laterally to keep my leverage. And then the transition we coach is a break foot, drive foot on the football. Okay, moving into the hips. We talk about our hips to win. We say hips to win because in transition, we got to get our hips to our target as quickly as we can, whether it be in coverage, block destruction, tackling, hips to win. Whoever has their hips in the best profile are going to win. Okay, so when we're talking post snap, which is essentially what I'm talking about, square to leverage, we talked about that. Our hips are going to push our butt back into our pedal. So that's just another way of explaining to a young player that if you push your butt back with your hips, that's creating the football position in the back pedal that we're looking for. If you're straight up and we don't have that arch, that means your hips are not pushing your butt back. Okay, so we're not going to get that clean back pedal movement. And then a really, really great verbiage or terminology that I got, before all of this started in 2020 with COVID is talking about the magnet. And the magnet really is this imaginary magnet on the inside of my hip to the receiver's hip. And as he breaks my leverage, if I'm going to open, what I really want to do is take this magnet on the inside of my hip on my open, and as quickly as I can, get my magnet to his magnet. And what that does is, now we've talked about opening and man turning, but in the winter, I got out and had a chance to sit down with Coach Simiak about the magnet. And what that does is it naturally forces the DB to close the ground on the receiver. It doesn't just force him to open. So if he constantly has that magnet in his mind, getting my magnet to his magnet, you're going to close the ground and cut him off, eventually getting yourself into phase. Okay? Now we know the importance of hips and block destruction and tackling, and I got some clips on that. Okay, the open, going back right into the magnet. We have 2 ways we open. We have our zone turn. Now today we're not going to talk about much zone, so we don't have on our clips too much QB vision. But when we're talking about zone turning, we're talking about having vision on the cue and moving off of that. When we're talking about man turning, we're talking about turning my man and getting my back to the cue if he's a threat vertical. So my eyes, my key are on my man as opposed to the QB. Okay, and that needs to be taught because I get a lot of young safeties who come in and want to look at the QB and get picks. And we all know the transition from high school to college isn't as easy to make interceptions that way. So when we talk about our man turn, what we're looking for is pushing off of that leverage foot. So if I'm on an inside leverage on the right, I want to push off of my right foot, okay, and slightly open up my left, ripping my elbow to my man, and I want to bring my leverage hand. So that right hand. So I'm going to prep, turn, get my right foot open to turn, my right hand prepped, okay, and I'm ready to bring that. And now my magnet comes into play, and I want to stick my magnet to his magnet, okay, and that will get me into phase. Now, a lot of coaches, we talk about in phase, out of phase. What I've chosen to do, I got this again from getting out this year, is breaking up really into 3 phases, okay? And the first would be carry, which means I can see his far number. I'm in a great vertical location in terms of leverage where I can get into a lean and locate and make a play on the football with my eyes back. We have even where I can't see far number, but I'm in a good football position. I can still play his hands. I have good vision, expecting any kind of back shoulder or over the top throw, just trying to play through the hands and be physical. And then poise where I'm absolutely beat. I'm not looking back. I'm just doing anything that I can to prevent a touchdown and playing through the hands late. So we really break it up into 3 phase rather than in or out of phase. And then we talk about the baseball turn, and we practice this. We don't practice as much as we do zone turn, man turn, because it's a lesser technique than the 2 in terms of the amount of times that we use it. But it is something that we do practice, we do coach, and really what that turns into is double moves, or if I get beat and it turns into poise and I got to get back. But really, the technique is the same in terms of pushing off my leverage foot, ripping my elbow, and trying to get my magnet to that far hip. Okay, and finally, the body on the open here. When we talk pre-snap, we mentioned the shell and positioning. Where is my help? In quarters, in our press quarters, with our off safeties, we know we don't have any help, 0 help. So we always say protect the post. So our leverage will be inside, absolute inside leverage, regardless of release. And then eventually what we're trying to do with our body is get into a phase. Lastly, our hand play, pre-snap loaded. Okay, so just hands ready. I don't care if they're dangling or in front. Again, I'm not going to overcoach the stance. I just want guys to be comfortable, but they do need to be active in their pedal. I do want to be physical on routes and placement by technique. And you'll see some of that coming up in some of these clips. Sometimes I want to swap that inside hand and pin his hand to his hip so that he can't go for an over-the-top vertical. Sometimes I want to shoot and create that separation so that it disrupts routes. Most of the time we're doing it with some kind of help, whether 1 high or 2 high safeties, trying to bump and run and eventually work into a trail. And then certainly finishing with our hands, working pass breakup drills and interception drills constantly, and then blocks, destruction, and tackling for hand placement, excuse me. Now, you'll notice on every single slide we talk about block, destruction, and tackling. That is not lost with our DBs. We are constantly talking about block, destruction, and tackling, because if we don't, naturally, they'll think all they have to do is cover. But in press quarters and in anything that anybody runs, really, you need your DBs to tackle. You need them to beat blocks, and that really excels our defense. Our number 1 deal on defense for the black hole, which is what we go by at University of Maine, is stop the run. Okay, and that's the same thing with our safety. So we talk about block, destruction, and tackling constantly. Okay, moving forward to the drills. So really the drill ideology for us, and just so you know, you guys probably have seen the TTG. That just stands for train to go. That's how our DB, that's what we break down to. That's our group name. And then our EDDs are our everyday drills. So this is what Coach Garrett and myself were trying to look for in our everyday drills with our DBs. Is the first is some kind of movement, and then we always want to have block, destruction, and tackling. Now, I'll say this, at the University of Maine, typically within a practice, we'll always open up defensively with some kind of circuit. And usually that is a block, destruction, tackling. However, there will be days where on blitz days, we'll do a blitz angle circuit. On third down days, we'll do a takeaway circuit, trying to force takeaways. On those days, if we're doing blitz angle or takeaways, I'll take block, destruction, and tackling and move it into my safety end. Now, on days where we do block, destruction, or tackling in our circuits, safety indie for me really goes to scheme, footwork, and I'm really focusing on their eyes. We'll talk about that moving forward. But our group TTG drills. First one here is one line. This is our day 1 drill. So we'll start everybody on the sideline, and we'll start with just one player up at a time on day 1, just to coach this correctly, and so that we can get it on film and they can really see it. So we'll start in our walk, which is really our read steps for our corners. If it were our safeties, we call it our preach. So here you can see he's going to start in his walk and then get into a fluid pedal down the line. Okay, so you can see this is great right now. He's got shoulder over knees, knees over toes. active hands in his pedal. His elbows are tucked in right as his rib cage, maybe a little far back. Not going to overcoach that. In terms of the back pedal, you can see balls of his feet are in the ground. He's keeping his heels off the ground. And on the open now, look at the elbow rip. You can see that drive, his hand placement ready, and his eyes to follow. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to start him with a walk down the line, get him into a pedal, and then open him in one direction, starting one guy at a time. Okay, as we move forward, now the way we call these everyday drills, this is the drill that we run every single Tuesday. So we'll start our practice with this drill. Okay, down the line, again, really like number 4 here on the left. Good and shoulder, feet. Okay, the only thing I would say is right here on his turn, that left arm is hanging out, right? So he's not driving that elbow, which means he's not going to be aggressive on the turn. He's not thinking about his magnet getting to the other magnet. Okay, so that's not as physical and as snappy as we're looking for. Whereas number 1, I don't like his back pedal as much. His hands are down at his hips. Now he's more of a put them in your pocket. They're active, but if we're going to do that, I'd rather have his elbows tucked to his rib cage so that his hands are ready for strike. Now he's a pressed corner, so he didn't backpedal too much for us. But what I really like, and he does this a lot because we see a lot of fades, is his turn. He's going to rip that elbow violently, bring that hand across, get his eyes, and you can see both toes point in the direction of their open, and they're getting that gait into the direction of their man so they can follow with their hand. Okay, so we'll send them down. Again, every drill that we run, we try to finish with a football. So that's Coach Garrett down at the other end, throwing the footballs to the guys. So we'll send everyone down. And then he'll send them back, okay? And on the way back, he really turns them in the same direction so that we get a right open and a left open. Again, watch number 4's elbow here. Good job on the rip this time. Prepped his foot, aggressive around. Just would like him to finish and follow with his hand. Okay, so the next portion, now this is the same drill, one-line drill. We work a little bit of a weave pedal. And this is a little wordy here, but really the weave, our mechanics are the same. Just with our lateral movement, we have to keep a heel-to-toe relationship and not cross over. Okay, so we'll practice this day 1. Okay, good example here with number 4 on his preach steps. Okay, so these are his read steps, just small, really replace steps. Some safety coaches have referenced them as skate, slide. For us, preach, because for us, we call push and reach. So we want to push off that front foot, reach with the back. It's a little jumpy. Okay, and then we'll start our weave. So they're working off of me as the indicator, again, always having a key, working off of me and weaving them. Now, ideally, you want to get them to the line, straighten them back, and then weave them back to the line and get them to turn again. Very similar to drill, we're just having a weave component. Again, pretty good here. Active hands. Now you can see 46, the closest to us, a little bit of a crossover here, which means if we get an in break right now, he's going to have to essentially replace that step with another and redirect for transition. So now number 29, far from us, a little better in the heel-to-toe relationship. He's going to be ready to break off of that one right now. Okay, so we can see the difference. And we're going to open again. Good clip here by 37. Again, smaller, choppier steps, but gains ground. What I don't like is his hands aren't moving. Okay, so he's not ready. He's giving the chest. Good receivers are just going to win with theirs. Good job in the pedal, though. Closest to us, little heavy in the back pedal. Now you can see constantly, number 31, 7 cleats in the ground, right? Very heavy footed. So if he were to get a break right now, he's not on the balls of his feet. He's not going to be ready transition. Now, we have a drill later that we came up with to try to prevent that, to try to get them to play on their balls of their feet. Just a back shot here of the same drill. Again, watching number 3 here. Really, really good on the heel-to-toe relationship on the weave. Love that he's gaining ground. Great hands. And now watch the finish here with his elbow, drive, eyes, and then the hand to follow. You can see right now he's working hand play without even practicing on a receiver. He's ready to pin that near hand down and get into body phase. Okay. Now our third one-line drill, after Coach Garrett brings them back, we'll drive instead of weave. Okay, very, very simple. We're just trying to open up that tone, the direction, get our hips open, run, but constantly having vision on the indicator, myself as the coach. Okay, again, we want these guys to get to the line. Number 4 here is a little too vertical. We would much rather him get to the 30-yard line here, okay, because, again, we play halves technique. We're trying to get to the post from the hash, so we're really trying to overemphasize driving and getting square for the profile. Again, the one thing I've noticed running this drill is guys will try to slow down before they get to the line, but you really want to get them driving and react off of you. If they're slowing down on this, they're not gaining anything from the drill. So sometimes you might want to hold them, get them quicker so that they're reacting. Again, good job here by 37. Loses a little bit of vision here over the shoulder. Would like to have a little better vision, but love that he's getting that much ground laterally. Okay, and this is a bad clip here by 31. You can tell this is day one freshman. Okay, he's running straight to the line and then trying to find the cue. And to me, that's defeating the purpose of the drill. All of this stuff, we want vision, okay, because it does us no good if he's got his back to the QB, okay, and the ball's been handed off or thrown so that we can break. All right, just the back shot of this. Again, really good job here of number 3, getting to the line, getting square, flattening out, and then getting him back to the line and then back to square. Okay, constantly getting them to reprofile their shoulders and hips. Okay, and then the last of the one-line drills, this is just 3 hip flips down the line, really just getting their hips loose. This gets them ready for baseball turns, gets us ready if we get essentially fooled in the post. Really just good for hip flexibility and getting them moving early in practice. Start them in a pedal, get them one way, the other, okay? And we only run that once down. Coach Garrett doesn't bring them back because it really essentially you're getting both directions on the flip. Okay, so that component, that's really focusing on the pedal, the drive, okay, my hand placement, my eyes, the open and not the drive. This, now we're going to talk about transition. At the University of Maine, we're constantly talking about break foot, drive foot. My break foot is essentially that foot away from the angle of my break. So if I'm breaking downhill to the left, it would be my right foot, okay? And I'm trying to get that foot as quickly as I can underneath my hip pocket. Again, constantly talking about the hip circle. If I'm too elongated, I'm going to have to load up on that, okay, in order to drive off of it. Okay, so I'm keeping that underneath my hip circle, slightly opening it, okay? And then I want to get those cleats right underneath my body. Okay, the second piece of that is the drive foot. Okay, so I've got that foot in. The drive foot is that second step to get me going in the direction I have to go. So it's break foot, drive foot. Okay, and we constantly talk about that, break foot, drive foot, and then we want to run the 40 out of our break. Okay, so just kind of talking through it. I tell my guys day one, hey, get 2 feet in the ground as quick as you can. That's the first way I teach breaking on the football. Okay, and then we'll talk about, okay, how elongated you are, getting in them in the hip circle, the direction of my break, which foot should I be breaking off of? Okay, but for me, I want to see how quick guys can get those 2 feet in the ground because, again, running the 40 out of the break is the most essential part of it. Okay, I want to get the toe in the direction of where I'm going, and then I want to get my eyes to my man and not the ball. Again, another thing that I'm sure a lot of DB coaches battle out there is on the break. Guys constantly want to look back for the football and get that interception, but Division I CAA football and really back to Division III and high school alike, if you're looking back at the football, you can't cover your man. And I make the analogy with my guys all the time is, I'm a washed up backup quarterback who never ran a good 40, but if you're looking that way, I bet you I can run a route and beat you. And that's the way I honestly feel. So we're constantly talking about getting our eyes on our target until we can reach out and touch them, and then we can get our eyes back. Okay, 2 feet in the ground as quickly as we can. Okay, so the second is a 2-line drill. All right, we call this 2-line. We'll run this essentially on Wednesdays. So it'll start with our walk and our pedal, and we're going to shuffle. Okay, now the terminology we use when we're moving laterally, we call it push to move, which means I'm pushing off of that foot and moving in the direction with that other foot. So if I'm pushing off my inside foot, I'm pushing to move with my other. So here they're pushing to move laterally to their right, back to the line, pedal, and then here is break foot. Goes up here. We've got break foot, drive foot. Now you can see number 4, see how elongated he is here? That's not in his hip circle. So you watch his second step and he's not getting anywhere, right? He's elongated. He's got 4 steps in the same spot, okay, because he's not in his hip circle. All right, now number 3 here, good job in his walk, good job in his pedal, a little lazy with his hands. He's pushing to move laterally. We should now in our push to move, do not let your heels click. We're back to the line on the pedal. Now his break, look at his break foot, bang, drive foot's underneath his body, and he gets 2 steps. Okay, and that's really what we're looking for in the first part of this drill. Okay, so the second part of this drill, or the second piece, we'll walk or preach as safeties. You can see those small little reed steps, pedal, and now we'll run. We'll just drive the line and come back, break foot, drive foot, finish with the football. Okay, the third piece of this drill, we'll walk or preach, pedal, open inside, and then break at a 45 back out. Okay, so teams that run off man, or for us, we play some bail thirds and do those things, or for safeties, if we get fooled and we have to break back down, okay, this is where this drill is applicable. Again, the fundamentals are the same, even though I'm turned sideways. It's break foot, drive foot. Now my break foot, if I'm on the left side of this picture, would be my left foot, and my drive foot would be my right foot, and vice versa on the right side. So it's break foot, drive foot, as quick as we can get them, off the balls of our feet into our hip circle. Okay, and the last element here, the last element is we'll turn inside, pedal, turn inside, same fundamentals with the elbow rip, and we're trying to get to a 360 back down the line, overemphasizing the baseball turn. Walk, pedal, open, 360 down the line. Okay, now that's a quicker drill that we have in practice, and we'll follow that up with Prophy. Okay, so it's essentially just keeping things tight. These are efficient ways, maybe on taxing days. It's funny, you can see a guy stretching out up top. Taxing days in practice, you know, when you can kind of feel your guys losing a little bit, maybe physically or mentally. These are smaller drills that aren't as taxing on the guys, but as effective in the same. So right now, all this is going to be is a walk to break foot, drive foot. Walk, break foot, drive foot. Okay, so really what we're doing here is on the break, it should be our right foot underneath our hip circle, left foot as quick as we can, getting them in the ground. Okay, and on the second break, we're just going to finish with a football in the end, opening up back inside. A tight drill that moves quickly and gets guys used to breaking off of break foot, drive foot, and easy to film and coach everybody off. Now, one thing I'll say, just watching this, is eyes, right? I'm noticing guys, and again, we'll talk more safety individually with their eyes, but a lot of guys, like 30, this is good. He's looking at coach. 21's looking at coach. 13's looking at coach. But watch number 31 here. His eyes are down at the ground, okay? He doesn't have a target. He doesn't have good eyes, and that's creating bad habits. So as we're going through these drills, we're constantly looking at these guys' eyes and moving off of indicators. All right? This is just the frontal. So right here, you can see number 4. This is kind of why I put this clip on here. His break foot, drive foot, he's breaking off of the wrong foot here. All right, and what's going to happen here is he's got to put that essentially that second step ends up being his break foot again. So it's break foot, break foot. You can see him replacing that right foot directly back underneath his body. So essentially creating two break foots. He's not getting out. He's not transitioning as fast as he would if he was breaking off of his right. Again, running the 40. Watch the active hands out of the break. All eyes should be on coach. All right, and we'll just bring them back the other way. Same drill. And then the second element is we'll run out of it from a side perspective. Sorry, this is a little jumpy on me. So we'll run out, shuffle back, and finish. Okay, again, playing sideways, the break foot, drive foot fundamentals remain the same. Run out, shuffle back. Run out, shuffle back. Just trying to get our feet back to the line. So like 46 years hopping. He doesn't have 2 feet in the ground. That's bad technique. Okay? He shouldn't be hopping into that. It should be break foot, drive foot. Right here, 30 hopping. Should be break foot, drive foot. Okay, and the last of our EDDs, our everyday drills, are pedal box. Okay, so this is another day during our practice week. Essentially just 10 yards of space, and all we're going to do is get them breaking at a 45 off of us coaches and indicators, and we're simulating a hip drop. All right, we'll talk about eyes here in a little bit and where we're trying to put them in our back pedal and on breaks. But here we're simulating a receiver breaking down. So they'll start in their walk or their preach. Okay, break foot, drive foot. And it's off of the coaches as indicators. So right now, 13's looking at me, 4 is looking at Coach G. And they shouldn't be looking at our eyes. They should be looking at their hips. So I'm constantly telling guys, hey, don't look at here. Don't look at me. They should be looking at the hips and dropping off the hips. When the receiver's hips drop, we should drop our hips into break foot, drive foot. Okay, and we'll work these into both directions. Again, finishing with a football. Okay, the second time, or really the third time around after going both directions, we'll open and run. Again, same fundamentals. Really should get that profiled toe right now pointed in the direction of where I'm going, if I can get it. So right now, break foot, get this toe going, pointed where I'm going. Run the 40. So number 30 right now, see how deep his break foot is outside of his circle? Right now, you can see him slipping on the turf. Inefficient. All right, and then just going back the other way. Now, what we'll try to do, or I'll try to do with corners, like this is a corner, number 13, is simulating a vertical comeback, right? So he's open, hips drop right now. Maybe he's in a cover 3, right, or an off man, drop. Now he's off of me. Press him vertical, drop, off of me. Now, again, on days where I feel like my safeties, they might be a little tired, we'll do this on our own and slow it down. Okay. Now, in terms of from an off safety standpoint, when we use this technique, it's not very often where we're playing sideways, or we shouldn't be, because we're always trying to keep that profile, but we have to admit it happens, right? So this is a clip right now of number 4 out here to the field. He's our strong safety, essentially man on 2 unless he's under. He gets this vertical release. The first thing he does is open his hips, right? Which is poor. We know we have to weave and keep our leverage. Now, he's not going to reprofile and get square, so he's got to play from a side profile here. And this is just a great job of break foot, drive foot, keying the hip in the midsection. When he sticks his, meaning the receiver, I stick mine. So break foot, drive foot. Now he's going to run and drive the man on the football. It's a really good rep. just a really good job of number 4 here. Turns a little early, but playing from sideways, and we get a good break foot, drive foot, and run the 40 out of the break. 4th down. Okay, we'll just move into block destruction and tackling. So again, more safety specific. We mentioned a lot about block destruction and tackling. In technique for us, we're always talking about shock, lock, escape. That's how we coach our block destruction. From a DB perspective, we have really 3 positions of leverage, and you should always know where you're working from. If I'm in man-to-man, I know my fit is outside of my man, so I should be working from essentially a behind block destruction, because if I'm playing inside out on my man and he comes to block me, I know now I have to fit outside. So that's essential. We work a lot of even block destruction. We don't see it a lot, but that really is just teaching the fundamentals of block destruction, getting your hips through, hands inside, thumbs up. And then if anybody plays cover 3, or if you're playing a multiple safety look and you have one down as an outside linebacker, you have the ahead where you're setting edges. And we'll practice each. Again, we mentioned shock, lock, escape. The shock is that initial bench press off, lock. Okay, we want to keep them there. And then the escape is the knee drive through. So as safeties, again, we get a lot of cracks. We get, because we are a press quarters team, we get tons of cracks. Day 1, I got this from Coach Hollick at Springfield College, teaching hand position, body position on block destruction. So, again, now my young guy over here, he's fit to the left. He should be fit to the right. Taking a look at right here, there's a good profile. We want to, if I'm defeating the block and I want to set the edge on the right side, I want to take my left hand and place it on the V of the neck of the receiver. I want the right hand on the shoulder pad, and I want to create a good bend with my elbow pressed up. Okay, I'm in a ready to shock position. Split the crotch with my foot in a good football base. Okay, and on the command, all we're going to do is lock this thing out, roll our hips, and then the finish is as important as anything. We're going to take that inside knee and drive it through. Okay, I tell guys it's almost like I'm trying to start a lawnmower. I'm not sure how many guys are out there push mowing. Starting a lawnmower and really driving that thing is as hard as I can through. Really good job here by number 4. Josh Huffman from Buffalo, driving that thing through on the finish, and just love the finish. Okay, I'm looking over here at one of my younger guys, doesn't have great knee bend. We talk about screws to chin, which means the screws of my helmet need to be on the chin of his, and I'm not sure that's happening over here with 46. It looks like he's kind of leaning up on him. It's been a harder practice. All right, and again, so right here, we're in a right side fit. Two good block destruction positions here with these guys. Okay, the other drill we'll use, this is that even look. Again, it's trying to teach these guys to take this on physically downhill. Don't let the block come to me, get my hands on it, and then just react to the football and then finish in a tackling position, which we'll speak more on shortly. Tackling. Really for tackling, we try to simplify it at the University of Maine. We don't try to overcoach tackling, but we do coach it very heavily. And really for us, it's press the hip, step on his toes, and run your feet while you throw your hands. And those are the essentially the key terms that we're trying to get stuck in our guys' heads. Okay, press the hip, keep my leverage inside out, step on his toes, gain ground, don't leave my feet. Okay, throw my hands. What does it mean when I throw my hands? That means I'm naturally going to unload my hips, right? And then when I run my feet for the finish. Step on toes, throw your hands. Or a lot of times, as we know, as DBs, we get into these wrap and roll situations a ton. Okay, so we'll work tackling circuits on days that we don't. We'll do some kind of DB tackling. This day, we are working essentially setting an edge and working from outside or inside out, tackling the wheel here on a wrap and roll. Now, what I don't like, and this is a habit that has been created with this wheel, is guys are just diving. Okay, I would like him to take one more step with that right foot and roll it. Okay, rather than lunging through with both, and that takes some time with guys to get used to. But that's going to teach them to take that extra step and close ground rather than diving and lunging and trying to torpedo a heavier set back. So we'll work this both ways. This is just going in the opposite direction. Good hand placement via the neck. Okay, and we're just going for that downfield leg. All right, now, this doesn't have the block destruction component, but this is where it comes to play. Okay, number 4, you can see this is the preach footwork we talked about. He's really crack replacing this. But again, this is essentially the tackle wheel. And again, creating bad habits. His eyes are out in front of his body. He's not stepping on the toes or running his feet. But it does have that same feel as the tackle wheel. Okay, from that wide zone, that outside hitting run play perspective. Or it could be a bubble. Okay, now, how do you coach them, right? Or how do you approach to get them not to dive? If I'm using a tackle wheel, so this is what Coach Garrett and I came up with after the fact. So we got the wheel, which we know is useful for us, but we also need to step on toes and run feet. So on days we didn't have tackling circuits, we had our own little DB circuit that we ran. Okay, so we have one group who's going to step, grab cloth on the back with our hands and tackling and run their feet until I blow the whistle. Training and trying to ingrain running our feet through tackles and driving the ball back. Okay, and we'll have them go with both shoulders, both profiles. I should be stepping and striking, same foot, same shoulder on my tackle. Okay, another tackling drill that we use at University of Maine, and this is kind of moving into the scheme here, is a vice tackle. So this is simulating 2 safeties in the back end, vicing a running back, because as in press quarters, our job is to keep the ball inside and in front on run. Okay, so between us 2 safeties, we have to keep this ball inside of us, and these type of tackles happen for us 6-7 times a game, and I have an example coming right here as we move in to our scheme. Okay, so just to have an understanding really of our safety drills and why we run them, you kind of have to know our scheme a little bit. So our corners are man on 1 unless they're under. So they're locked on those guys, eliminated. Our safeties are man on 2 unless they're under, okay? So what that means, we're basically playing off man, okay? If my guy goes under, under to us means underneath all 3 linebackers, I'm free. Okay, so now I could play with QB vision and start to rob routes. Okay, if this isn't under, the Will knows he's got to take first color inside out. So if the back comes here, he's got first color inside out, and the Mike will progress to the next. Same thing with the Rover. So remember earlier we talked about balanced, and really one technique is both techniques, and that's really what you're seeing in this picture. Now in 3x1s, we're a robber team where the free safety has 3 vertical. If he comes back or divides, he will match it, but nothing changes on the front side for us. And then the Will would have the running back if he ran any type of swing or wheel. Okay, day 1, and again, I stole this acronym. I have to, I think, mention that, Aster. This is an acronym for alignment, stance, key, and responsibility. And I thought this was just a great way for me to teach the safeties how to remember how to teach it back to me. And the one thing I tell safeties day 1 is when I know that you know something is when you're able to teach it back to me, okay, and effectively. So, and this is the method of teaching in my mind when you're teaching coverages, the alignment, stance, key, and responsibility. And if you know those, you can teach, and teaching is coaching. Okay, so when we talk about our alignment, they should know the alignment based off the coverage. When we talk about our stance, we have 2 stances at Maine. It's speed or it's square. Okay, speed, I'm off of a detached speed receiver. Okay, my feet are shoulder width, slightly staggered with a heel-to-toe relationship. I have good bend in my ankles, knees, and hips. Okay, and I'm ready for a preach or a pedal movement. Okay, and I'm break foot, drive foot ready, meaning if they run the bubble, I'm pulling the trigger. Okay, square means I'm typically off of a tight end, or I'm in a 3x1 where I'm robbing to the field. Okay, my feet are even. And the reason we do this is I don't want these guys moving backward at all when they're square. So I balance up their feet so that they know that they're moving laterally and not backward. Okay, but again, same bend in ankles, knees, and hips, and ready to create contact. So in our scheme right here, as we know, our safety here, this is number 2, outside in, 1, 2. He's keying here. Now, on the divide or any type of insert, he essentially becomes a linebacker. So this is that vice tackle that we saw earlier that he's going to make here. Oh. Okay, so he's going to key this, and on the divide now, he knows he's going to step to replace, because our linebackers have a lot of freedom to fall back in our defense. So these guys are going to fall back with the divide, essentially making this boundary safety a linebacker fit. And he's just going to keep this ball inside of him, outside in. And this is that same vice drill we saw earlier. And that's all it is coming to fruition here. Okay, the other time we'll use this square stance is when we're in this 3-by-1 robber. Now, if 3's vertical, he's going to play him man-to-man, moving laterally to match. If he eliminates, meaning blocks under or out, he's going to zone turn to the QB and have vision. And that's what happens in this clip here. So his guy eliminates. He's shuffling laterally. His guy eliminates. And you can see right now he knows he's going to zone eyes. So he gets him back to the Q. And then this is why, we're not an off-quarters team. We're not trying to give free access throws. Manny Patterson out of Baltimore, unfortunately, tore his ACL last year, but has a real shot to play on Sundays and really just lock things down into the boundary for us. Now, schematically, this is what I'll say is we recruit for this position. We wouldn't play press quarters if we didn't have the guys to play out here. So I think it's important to mention that you have to scheme with what you have. Rather than try to hammer techniques or schemes into guys, we have to, as coaches, kind of play in to what they have. And where I kind of got that mentality, honestly, listening to older coaches, for sure. But watching Saban and Belichick talk on their HBO special when they had mentioned, when you pay a lot of money for one of these corners to get in and he doesn't play the way that you coach, well, you better learn a new way to coach. And I took that when I heard that and applied it to essentially how we coach our guys. You know what I mean? Coach with what they're comfortable with within that and within your scheme. Right here, we get the press, we get zone eyes, and he's able to move and get the tip off or interception off the tip. Okay, and then now you can see this is that drill again when both guys are tight, two safeties, really ready just to vice the football. So both guys are just looking to keep that thing inside of them, continue to close ground, and press the hip. All right, now, when we're off of speed, okay, we have three phases, really. We have our preach, pedal, and our open. The preach is our read phase, 1 to 2, 3 yards tops. Those are our read steps. Once that's broken, we get into our pedal, which we talked about. And lastly, the open. Okay, so we'll break them down into 3 phases, and we'll rep it. We'll put cones down so that the guys know. I don't have any film of that, but I think that's important for the guys to understand which phase that they're in when they're pedal. Okay, we talked about that preach. It's really a small replace step, no more than 6 inches. Some guys call it a skate. Some guys call it a slide. Now, I've tried to get film on this. We were supposed to be getting the film this day, but we're over here, and this is just us repping day 1, our preach steps. So this is just us taking these small little preach steps here on the bottom left, just step replace 6 to 8 inches. And really, we're trying to keep those feet in our hip circle in case of bubble. We always talk about demeanor of departure. Their shoulders, are they in a forward lean off the line of scrimmage, or are they up? Well, if they're up, that means they're getting ready to break, right? Their shoulders are high, they're getting to run. If they're in a forward lean, that's vertical, time to get into my pedal. Okay, so we're kind of basing it off of their demeanor of departure. Okay, and just a good example up here of our preach steps off of speed. Again, we're a 10-yard alignment. Really good here by Rich Carr out of Philly. And his speed stance, he's going to preach off the ball, okay, because he doesn't feel very threatened. Watch this receiver off the ball. High profile with his shoulders, okay? He ain't threatening me vertical, so he's going to slow down his preach, prep, break foot, drive foot now. Again, and this is a guy who's been in our system now 3 years. First thing he does out of the drive, because he knows he had a good read on this thing, is get his eyes back, right? And if he doesn't do that, he potentially has an opportunity as this receiver is pulling the ball back into the body to make a play, but he's just a step late because of his eyes. He needs to drive the man here. Again, still with all of that, throwing the out, this is the free access in our defense, is a 3-yard gain. Okay, again, now we're up top. This is the speed off of 2. Again, we see a lot of outs, bubbles, deep outs. Now, he's starting to preach, but you notice this little hop. Again, he's a step slow. Eyes are back on the break. Now, this is our first game, and we got better as the year went on. But if we eliminate those 2 things, it's the difference between a PBU or potentially a tip pick, and a tackle for 3. Now, when we get into our safety-specific drills, this is one thing that we're constantly drilling because we see a lot of deep outs and bubbles and these quick outs to the field, and we're training our eyes. It's all of our eyes. We got to slow the game down. So it's obviously pre-snap, see full formation, indicators, who's on the ball, cut splits, back depth, wide receiver alignments, all that comes into play. But mainly what I'm talking about is post-snap when we're drilling. Okay, the demeanor of departure, their shoulders and their profile, what kind of lean they have, how choppy are their steps, are they gaining ground? Okay, and then making sure that we're focusing on our leverage side, really that lower abdominal region. And I hear coaches mention belt buckles and that near hip, all of that, that's exactly right. What we say is really that section 1 and 2 inches inside of the belly button, keying that hip section. And when we're running drills, I make sure that I'm looking at their eyes, because on film, I can see their feet, I can see their hands, I can see their body, all of this stuff I can see, but as soon I can't see their eyes. That's something I'm making sure constantly in the drills that I'm looking at. Okay, and this is all about eyes and driving. It's drive the man. Now, if I had time to get pop-ups out here, I'd put pop-ups, and ideally I would have them working off of somebody running a break. But really the purpose of this drill is the back pedal, the break, but most importantly, getting here to a position to where they can reach out and touch the cone before they get their eyes back. And we call this drive the man drill. Again, this is my this is my guy in the drills, very crisp. Started in the program as a walk-on, earned a scholarship because of really how well he approached and how well the amount of work he put into his craft at Maine. Get break foot, drive foot. Look how close he gets to the cone before his eyes get back, right? And I tell him, if you can reach out and touch them, that's when we can start to get our eyes back. Okay, just another way, and this is more of a competitive way, teaching them to run out of their 40 and get their eyes to their man. I'll start this without a football, and then when I want it to get competitive, we'll get the football in there so that they're really running out of their break. All right. Mirror, eyes, and top route. So teaching the eyes. Okay. Got this from a summer camp a couple years back. And what this does is, one, we talked about guys playing on the balls of their feet earlier. It's forcing them to get on the balls of their feet, hopefully. And then 2, it's locking their eyes in on this midsection. So you can see I'm going to place myself in a position where I can see both guys' eyes, and I'm just going to tell these 2 receivers to walk. Okay, and all of the 2 safeties here, it looks like they're in press coverage, but that is not the purpose here. I know there's a lot of press drills that look like this. I have my hands there because I want to focus on my eyes. Okay, so my eyes are on the midsection. Okay, I should be working off the balls of my feet, and then throughout this entire drill, I should stay on left side leverage. These guys have the freedom to walk and do whatever they want. Okay, and you can see right now, 3's on his heels a little bit. He's got to get on the balls of his feet. Okay, so this is a good drill for number 31 earlier for him to use to stay on the balls of his feet, keeping that leverage. Okay, we also call it top route, okay, because depending on the demeanor of the departure, okay, so like number 2, our guys know anytime we get motion from a slot and he starts to flatten out, he ain't going vertical. Okay, what he's trying to do is get our feet moving on the snap so that we have bad leverage. So right now, he knows on his takeoff, his shoulders go up. He's going to start playing on the balls of his feet. We call it top route. He's at the top of his route. I'm going to get on the balls of my feet, getting ready to spring out of my break. And then up top, you can see our square stance here and getting out of the break. Not giving ground, break foot, drive foot. Oof. Catch the ball. Okay, again, you can see at the top of the screen, this is top route again, playing on the balls of his feet. And that's all we're trying to do in this drill. Okay, the second element of this drill is now obviously we'll work it in the pedal. We call this pedal leverage. All right, so we're trying to maintain leverage, number 4 on the left side of the receiver, number 3 on the right side, and keep that leverage in the pedal. Ultimately, as we get better and we're good at the leverage in our eyes and all of these, we'll add a break at the end where he'll break on his right hip and he'll break on his left. I think we have that here. So all they're trying to do here is maintain the pedal and the weave and then run the 40 through both hips. Okay, now adding the next element, okay, to this is eyes on the open. All right, so when I'm gonna open, how do I do it? Okay, so I gotta follow with my eyes. I still have them on the midsection. Now, when we do this, now these guys are doing it a little more of a bump and run. Really what I wanna take with my left hand here and do is pin his elbow down. All right, now that's where the hand fight comes into play, which is why we talked about hands earlier. But all we're going to do now is work the open and the release off of this drill. Again, training the eyes, training our hips to get open and ready to run. Good clip here by these two. Again, staying on top, all right, seeing that far number in a carry position. All right, and then we'll have what we call preach to open, just kind of putting all of these drills together. So we'll preach, pedal, open, and watch number 3 with the hand placement. Gonna pin that thing down, and then now we're into body into phase. Carry, even, or poise. Again, right here, good job on, now he gets up underneath the armpit, which I'm good with because the receiver is running up high, so he can get up underneath the armpit and then close the ground, and then watch the magnet. Watch him take that right hip and then continue to press to the hips. All right, really, really good job here. All right, on the open. Okay, remember the 3 phases. I put that slide up again. We got carry, even, and poise. Carry is obviously the position we want to be in. Really good clip up top here of number 3 in the carry position on this vertical. Trying to throw the slot fade on us, closes the ground. On the finish, now watch his eyes coming back. He's in the carry because he can see the far number. He can get in a lean and locate because he's outside of the numbers. And then he's going to finish with his hands on the ball. Really, really good play. Okay, from the tight, I really would like him to weave with this thing and pedal here. But what he really does a good job of is closing the ground with the magnet, and then obviously the finish when he's in carry. Okay, and then lastly here, we're going to talk about the phase drills that we do, carry, even, poise. So right here, we'll start poise and try to get into a phase. So right here, Quincy from DC, he gets into a position where he feels like he can see that far number. Well, now he can get his eyes back and play for the football. Okay, we call that carry. All right, now this is a bad example of carry. Our guy in the red jersey here is getting his eyes back, but he clearly, no doubt in my mind, cannot see that far number. He should not get his eyes back. He's got to play through the hands. That's a poison situation there. So he's just got to play through the hands. That's why we get a catch here on the sideline. Better job by 4, gets into position here, sees the far number. I would like him with his body here, with the magnets, got to continue to ride to the magnet of the receiver, but really good position here on the finish. And then 3 here is just playing poise. He feels like he can't see the far number. He's behind. He's just going to play the hands. Couple game examples. Again, most of the time we get this are going to be out here on the perimeter. Because we're getting shots over the top. That's what teams, they try to go over the top on us in this press. So right now you can see he's even. Hip to hip, can't see the far number. So he is not going to get his eyes back. You can see he's still running with the receiver in a hip to hip. And now in this even, we had mentioned earlier, what we're ready for is this back shoulder throw. Okay, so on this receiver, if he starts to peel this shoulder back, I'm going to take, in this picture here, Catley, our Canadian, is going to take his left hand and shoot it through this right shoulder that's about to peel back in this picture. Okay, and that's why it's even. Just a really, really good clip here of even phase. Okay, and then the same guy here, Catley, again, another shot. Right now, He's beat. This is poise, okay? So if he had done what our guy in the red jersey did earlier, there's no doubt in my mind this is a touchdown. But he knows he's in poise and cannot get his eyes back. Okay, so he's beat, and it's going to be a PI or I break this thing up, but you are not catching the football. All right, and this ends up being a really, really good defensive play through the hands. And we'll rep this stuff. Playing poise without seeing and playing through the hands. That's something you can easily do in walkthrough that we do. When we end a little early, guys will just walk, put their hands up from poise, and play through. Sometimes they'll peel their shoulder back, shoot through. Easy drills. All right, and then the last part, we'll do this because we get a lot of over routes and unders. We'll do it across the field as well, trying to get in and out of phase. Again, teaching the same points. Right now, he's in poise. He can't get his eyes back. Once he gets to even, he can get, and then once he can get that far number and see it, now he can get his eyes back and hopefully get a pick on the dig or the over route. And that's the conclusion, really, of the presentation today. And really, my hope was that you got something, whether it be new verbiage, scheme, terminology, technique, or even just something as small as a drill or something, or a way to set up a drill. And I'm happy to be a part of Coach Bandstra's platform, and I think it's important during this time that we all have some resource to go by, and I really feel like just watching through the videos and the high caliber coaches and the quality of the techniques that are being put on here that this is just what we needed at this time, moving forward. So thank you, Coach, and this is all of my information up top here, my Twitter, my cell phone, my email. Please don't hesitate to reach out, whether it be about safety play. If you want to get in touch with one of our other coaches who are very, very open with film, with meeting, please feel free to reach out. And then recruiting, obviously constantly trying to find the next black bear. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to watch any guys that you give us. But thank you again, Coach, and I look forward to keeping in touch.